Hi, everyone. Okay, we're just going to get started here. Oh, it's a Saturday morning. Our salon number 75. We want to thank Elena Skoko for joining us at 3 a.m. her time to be with us right now. Our salon number 75, the maternal gift economy and maternity care in disaster with Elena Skoko. You may know her from Italy and Bali. She is now finishing up her PhD in Australia. So she's way down under there. We welcome her with the Maternal Gift Economy Breaking Through series hosted by Genevieve Vaughan and the International Feminists for a Gift Economy. I'm Letitia Layson, your moderator. After the presentation, we're going to take questions. Today, we hope that you will have questions for Elena. There's a Q&A down at the bottom of your screen. If you put your questions in there, they're a little bit easier to see. We're also going to have the chat open during the presentation, so you can enter your question in the chat as well. Ahead of time, I'm thanking Judith and Liliana, who'll be chasing down those questions and collecting them. Our salon today is being recorded and will be available on our website, the Maternal Gift Economy. maternalgifteconomymovement.org. Let me just introduce Elena. Elena Skoko is an interdisciplinary artist, mother activist, and citizen researcher currently working on her PhD on maternity care in disasters in Australia. Her study aims to understand how current disaster interventions work in a real-world scenario and what should be done to better meet the needs and expectations of childbearing women and communities. Elena's experience as a pro bono international activist and citizen researcher contributed to public and academic discourse on obstetric violence and human rights in childbirth. She's been collaborating with WHO, UN Human Rights Office, and numerous formal and informal international research and advocacy networks. Being a multidisciplinary artist influenced her approach to research, contributing to methodological innovations and community engagements. Welcome, Elena. We're so happy to have you with us today. I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Letitia. Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me here. And before I start, I wish to thank Genevieve, you, Letitia, Diane in the backstage, Liliana for the beautiful flyer and her artwork, and Judith, and the International Feminists for the Gift Economy Network for inviting me on this salon. As Letitia said, I will be talking about maternity care in disasters and the maternal gift economy connected to that topic. I'm currently in Australia doing a PhD on maternity care in disasters at Queensland University of Technology, QUT. It is a very lovely place. And I am supported by a wonderful team of supervisors, Yvette Miller, Judd Durham, and Deb Duthie, as well as by QT and Natural Hazards Research Australia. And I am halfway through the project. Today, 3 o'clock in the morning, so please bear with me, I will share with you some of the insights and reflections that I have been collecting on this research journey. I invite you to take note of questions that you might have, and we will address them after my introduction. I intend to speak around 30 minutes and leave plenty of time for questions to be addressed and to actually follow a discussion or the streams of topics that you might be interested in or inspired by these reflections I'm sharing. I will first try to explain what is a disaster and what is maternity care. I realize these are the first questions that come up when I say maternity care in disasters. And then I will share some thoughts on maternal gift economy in disaster management of maternity care. In some languages, there is no equivalent term for disaster. For example, in Croatian, I am Croatian and I am a proud Istrian woman of Slavic descent in Croatia, living in Brisbane, Manjin, where I am a guest of Australian and Queensland government and people, and of Turrbal and Yagara peoples, who are the traditional owners of this land. So yes, even saying the word disaster is a cultural thing. For example, in Croatia, not having an exact term may represent some even legal as well as cultural and academic challenges. We may call it emergency and have the word big emergency to emphasize the importance of disaster, crisis, or catastrophe. And many languages actually would have these terms as equivalent of disaster. But according to the United Nations Sendai Disaster Risk Reduction Framework, a disaster is a serious disruption of the functioning of the community or society at any scale due to hazardous events interacting with conditions of exposure, vulnerability, and capacity, leading to human, material, economic, and environmental losses and impacts. So not all hazards cause disasters, and many extreme events are managed by the community and societies. There is no such thing as natural disaster. Disasters are always dependent on human exposure, vulnerability, and capacity to face hazards. Hazards that cause disasters may be natural. Earthquakes, floods, bushfires, tsunami, cyclones, storms, landslide, drought, heat waves. These are some of the most common ones, especially in high-income countries. Anthropogenic disasters, anthropogenic hazards caused by humans, such as wars and conflicts, mainly in low and middle-income countries. Nuclear explosions, high-income countries, and social natural in origins, epidemics and pandemic or others. Climate change influences the frequency and intensity of disasters. And disasters are often compounding, caused by multiple hazards. For example, during COVID pandemic, there were floods, earthquakes, extreme cold or heat, wars, and others all together. Sendai Framework is an international consensus document used in disaster management plans and legislations worldwide. A disaster is basically a state affair. According to the Sendai Framework, it is an obligation of the state to provide basic health care, including maternity care, in disasters. Disasters are an obligation, like disaster management is an obligation of the state. States also should engage with women in all phases of disaster management, which are prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. So to be able to better account for over half of the population that is usually not at the top of the decision-making processes. Even when maternal and newborn health are at state's priority, childbirth is the only focus of disaster management, leaving antenatal and postnatal care or other non-health related needs of childbearing women outside of disaster management. It means that those needs should rely on the gift economy of women and communities. This can be problematic, since the way we perceive the childbearing process nowadays, fragmented and under high authority, makes it impossible for many women to rely on themselves and on the community in disasters, since they and the community no longer have sufficient knowledge and authority on the childbearing process. When I say maternity care in disasters, many will imagine a movie-like scenario where a woman in labor is urgently transported from a life-threatening situation into the hospital to give birth safely. This scenario is both realistic and problematic. To start with, many settings do not have hospitals in the first place. Many laboring women in disasters, such as floods, bushfires, cyclones, earthquakes, tsunami, will succeed in getting to the hospital and give birth safely, either with the help of family, neighbors, bystanders, community, or by emergency services. That is especially true if they live in high-income countries, urban settings, and if they belong to privileged population who live close to the hospitals, own cars, have a support network, and enough resources to face the crisis of a disaster while having a baby. Women and communities that live in rural and remote areas, that are Black, Indigenous, or underprivileged, may find themselves in different scenarios with more negative health outcomes, such as death of a mother or a baby, premature birth, and other complications. Women experience and consider childbearing as a continuum, and they expect services to provide what is necessary with what is available. Childbearing is a continuous biological, cultural, and intimate process. So governments should provide continuity of care to address women's specific needs during this first 1,000 days that are critical for maternal and newborn health. Scientific evidence shows that during disasters, maternal perinatal stress is the main cause of adverse clinical outcomes in childbirth. It is, in particular, life-threatening conditions such as maternal hypertension and hemorrhage, preterm birth, and newborns' low birth weight. Perinatal stress during emergencies can have short, medium, long, and even transgenerational consequences. To prevent negative health outcomes in childbirth and ensure a positive birth experience, continuous holistic healthcare should be provided during pregnancy. And after birth, continuous care is needed to ensure that the health of the mother and newborns are protected, which includes assistance in breastfeeding and newborn care, as well as practical and emotional support to the mother. Antenatal care is not prioritized in disasters, And while the importance of postnatal care in emergencies is well-established field of knowledge, it hardly translates into practice of disaster management. A recent WHO, World Health Organization's position paper, invites global health systems to transition to midwifery models of care, since midwifery models of care are adaptable to all levels of care and contexts, including disasters. While we know that childbearing is a continuous process and that women and newborns would benefit most from a midwifery continuity of care, integrated in the health system, including hospitals, when a disaster hits, all the states can think of is hospital-based childbirth. Women and midwives representatives are not invited at the disaster management decision-making tables. So very often, the reason for not having continuity of midwifery care is kind of trivial. Oh, we didn't think about it. During childbirth, skilled birth personnel providing assistance in a safe environment contribute to reducing maternal and newborn mortality and near misses. So incidents when life-threatening circumstances did not result in death, but had the potential to do so. In public health systems, skilled birth assistance is provided in health facilities, mainly hospitals. In low and middle income settings, access to hospitals may be one of the major issues, directly impacting maternal and newborn mortality rates. Hospitals, however, do not offer continuity of care before and after birth. Health facilities also are part of critical infrastructure mostly and majorly affected by disasters, compromised by limited and impossible access, power and water shortages, architectural vulnerability, and other structural and organizational challenges. In human-induced disasters, such as wars and conflicts, hospitals and maternity wards can be war targets. And we have seen that in the media, and with the recent wars in Ukraine and Gaza, this was evident. Disasters cause change in usual organizational patterns within health systems, including staff shortages. They are human and they are also affected by disasters, all the health practitioners. Work overload, task shifting, midwives may be used as in nursing roles, and change in priorities. Maternity care services in disasters are often reorganized, reduced, or interrupted. Emergency hospital procedures may prioritize efficiency over best practice, which may result in higher number of unnecessary obstetrical interventions in disasters. While hospital provides life-saving interventions during birth, they may not always be a positive experience for women, newborns, and families. Hospitals may routinely provide substandard care that may translate in obstetric violence, with long-lasting physical and psychological injuries and illnesses. So from the perspective of women, usual hospital birth assistance may be life-saving, but not always harmless. From the health system's perspective, this may be considered as an acceptable risk, especially if it is tolerable by existing social, economic, political, cultural, and legal norms. The possibility that maternity care services will do better in disasters than in usual times is unlikely. And even though respectful maternity care and positive birth experience are essential elements of maternity care, according to the World Health Organization, this may not be the reality. Concentrating maternity care in hospitals during disasters does not seem to be the best choice in ensuring protection of maternal and newborn health. And we should be shifting towards women-centered, community-based midwifery continuity models of care. We know that, but we are not doing it. And we can do better. In real-world scenario, all women in disasters firstly rely on themselves, their family members, and the community in a gift economy mode. When they live in a state that prioritizes maternal and newborn health, they rely on the state services as well. The state should provide help in disasters in a gift economy mode, meaning that the disaster-affected population will be helped for free based on their needs. It is state's duty of care. Very often, state disaster services will be integrated with specially trained volunteers like firefighters, humanitarian organizations, staff. The state disaster management is relying on the gift economy. And as emergency resources are limited, even in high-income countries. Now, I will use the term maternal gift economy, coined by here present feminist theoretician Genevieve Vaughan, because I think that the real-world disaster economy is primarily based on the maternal model of care and not only on the monetary economy. Maternal gift economy is free, purposefully and skillfully provided by the mother to the baby according to the baby's needs for survival and well-being. Disaster aid is given to the disaster-affected population for free, and it is crucial when the community is not able to care for themselves. There is something interesting and debatable in this maternal role of the state. Unilateral gift economy is crucial for babies' survival and well-being. Nobody is paying the mother to do this work, and often we do not even acknowledge that she is using her own resources for the survival of the baby. Without the skillful and free maternal care, the baby would not survive inside and outside of the maternal body and would not become a functional human being. So in materialist terms, women produce human beings, and they do that in every circumstance, including disasters, in a maternal gift economy mode. In disasters, women will still give birth and take care of their babies, with or without the state. But with the help of the state, in our modern world, their chances of survival are higher. Today, helping a laboring woman access the hospital in a disaster may be seen as a survival need, since knowledge about childbearing process is lost to most women and communities. When neither hospital nor midwives are available, the state may take for granted that women will rely on themselves. on the maternal gift economy that will be considered natural or spontaneous. Suddenly, in disasters where no services are available, the woman will be required to have the expertise and the authority to give birth and take care of her baby on her own. An autonomy that is culturally and often legally forbidden in normal circumstances. And the community will be required to know how to assist her. If, in usual times, the state of pregnancy and birth is seen as vulnerability, a risk, in disasters, when there is no one to help, a childbearing woman is required to rely on her natural capacity to give birth and take care of the baby on her own. This sudden natural capacity of a childbearing woman may be required in all phases of disaster management. A pregnant woman should preventively organize herself and her kids, pets, older people, entire households. Prepare for herself and everybody else needs in disasters. Follow the pace of others and share the communal space in case of evacuation, even if she may not be able to move fast and swift, or if she just gave birth and is breastfeeding and caring for one or more newborns. And then go back to whatever is left of her house and her family that she is required to tend for in every aspect. All of that in maternal gift economy mode that is seen as her natural role. But there is nothing natural in the maternal gift economy. It is the most effective and efficient response to the needs of the baby and the maternity condition. It is purposeful, skillful, intentional, and it requires most of women's resources. It is also meant to be shared by the community and not practiced by mothers alone. Childbearing women should not be asked to sacrifice themselves for the well-being of the health systems, as they have been required to do during COVID pandemic, when the health systems worldwide have been operating in disaster management mode. Instead, the health system should provide for the needs and expectations in the maternal gift economy mode, with free of charge, competent, appropriate, and respectful maternity care in disasters. I will stop here to allow for discussion, and if there is anything that caught your attention, please, we are here to actually talk about it. I think it is something that we can all share. Either we gave birth or not, we were, everybody of us was born at some point, and disasters are currently one of the major topics worldwide.
Thank you so much, Elena. Yes, please, those of you who are viewing, enter your questions or comments, feel free, into the chat or in the Q&A. I think there are a few who have already, but I just wanted to check in with Genevieve to see if she had something that she wanted to actually begin a dialogue with Elena.
Well, I really like the way you talk about what maternal care is, because it's always or at least not always, but often thought of as just an automatic biologically based activity that women do out of instinct. And instead, it's work. And I love the way you call it purposeful, skillful, and intentional. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Thank you, Jen. I fiercely believe in that. um, I believe that mothers in disasters are real world disaster managers for themselves, for their families, and within the community. Now, it is not only me thinking about this. There is currently more and more research on women's role in communities during disasters, and also mothers' self-sufficiency and unhappiness, expressed unhappiness regarding the disaster management in high-income countries. Because there are differences when disaster happens in high-income countries or low and middle-income countries, or settings, not even countries. Because sometimes in high-income countries, we can have low and middle-income settings, and that is in Australia very, very interesting to study and to see. And what makes it interesting here is the availability of resources for research on disaster and on maternity care in disasters. So Australian researchers are studying what is happening to women in disasters, and women are saying we are not happy with how we are considered in disasters, and what is the state doing for us. And some accounts are really hard to read and to listen to.
Yeah.
And yes, what they do, and women know what they're doing, and there has been cyclones in Australia since decades away, and women have been self-organizing. Mothers, even with small babies, were self-organizing, and there are accounts of that. And as I speak to people, I do a lot of I pitch to everybody. I do a lot of networking, real world networking. And when somebody asks me, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I study maternity care and disasters. Everybody has a story to share. And recently I have been informed about this maternal resilience, and how women have been managing disasters such as the Cyclone Tracy way back in the north of Australia and Queensland. Actually, it wasn't Queensland. I think it was Darwin. Oh, well, forgive me for my unprecision. But women have been organized. It's just that we don't know about it. Nobody cares to ask. And all of that maternal gift economy that we know we are doing, and women always known, and they are talking about it. They have the awareness of what they did. They don't think it's natural or spontaneous, because they know the effort they put.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And yet it's not considered work by the general population. It's considered sometimes even leisure. That's what's so funny, because it's a very involving kind of activity that you have to do pay attention every minute, basically. And I just am thinking of maternity care in disaster as a way of looking at a special case of maternity care generally, or of mothering generally. So that's just a way of looking at it when it's at an extreme.
Well, yes, I mean, women cannot stop doing maternal gift economy, especially in disasters. It's actually amplified. There is no choice there. You have to do the work, otherwise there is no life.
Right.
But things are, we just think that the maternal resilience is infinite, is an infinite resource. It's not. Women are able to just give up and let themselves and their babies die because they don't know what to do.
Right.
So we shouldn't be taking for granted that this resilience is there. I mean, maternal suicide is one of the biggest causes of maternal deaths, especially in high-income countries. So let's just not take it for granted.
Right. Yeah, I consider, the background of capitalism or the context of capitalism is really antithetic to the maternal gift economy. And so that is what makes it so difficult to mother in any situation in capitalism and patriarchy. And especially in situations of stress and emergencies.
I totally agree with you, Jen. And I have been thinking how our way and our capitalist society is actually forcing women to live in a disaster situation to begin with.
Yes.
So being alone or just with a partner to care for the baby, it's not enough. Where is the community? We are communal beings. So why are we forced and put on women to actually be in a disaster situation all the way through?
Yeah, that's really an important perspective. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jen. Thanks, Elena. Let me check in with Liliana and see if she has a question for us. I see them starting to roll in. So Liliana.
Yes. Hi, Elena. From Jodine Chase. Elena, your work is so important. Do you see a shift in having women as disaster experts, midwives at the emergency preparedness table? I can ask it again.
No, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for this question. Well, it depends. No, honestly. No, but it is we are already a step forward in being able to say that. We now know more in terms of authoritative knowledge. we may know what we know, but in order to translate that knowledge into something that policymakers may consider authoritative, it takes a huge effort. So now there are more and more women researchers in a disaster context, and they produce research that is about women and it is about communities, and actually everybody else that are not white privileged men. So before that, we didn't have that research, and now we have. But women had to struggle to get the resources to actually be at that level of masculine discourse and produce that level of academic knowledge and policy-friendly knowledge and data. When you start from an unprivileged position, it takes a while to be able to arrive to that kind of requirement. So now we have studies, we have evidence, and in contexts like Australia, that policy tends to be evidence-based, or at least that is the premises. That are the premises. We want data, we want to know through studies what is happening, and we want to understand the solutions that are people-centered and community-based, and that they integrate with the government. So in Australia, there is an awareness of the need to connect with the communities. But within the disaster management policy as well as research, gender issues, women's issues are underrepresented. And women may actually sit on a decision-making tables, but have difficulties in putting forward their arguments and actually emphasize the importance of that population. Only half of the population, plus all the children that women tend for. So I'm thinking there aren't enough women on the table, sitting at the tables, and definitely there are not enough midwives. There is a problem there that is deeply rooted in power relationships. Midwifery as a profession, as the only women-centered profession, it is not how to say acknowledged enough. So very often it depends really on the health system, but midwives may not be autonomous profession. They go under nurses, and this reflects in research. For example, sometimes a disaster research will mention nurses as primary health providers for childbearing women. And then when I do a systematic literature review, I will not be able to understand if there were nurses or midwives assisting women. And studies may just not say that. That is really huge. So even the profession is not acknowledged, and women often may not understand the difference between a midwife or a nurse.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Wow. I never considered that, actually, that people did not understand that the difference between a nurse, a midwife, a doula, a mother, and how those relationships work with the doctor. Because that's critical to actually documenting what you say in order for you to find the data and the research. That is really interesting. Wow.
Yes, there are some issues in terminology. Also, maternity care. I chose that expression. It is not universal, so some people would not immediately understand what I'm talking about. Maternity care is an institutional and an official term in Australia, in the United Kingdom, Canada maybe, but it may not translate in the same way in other countries. Like in Italy, for example, you would have the assistance, maternity assistance. So
Okay.
every system will have their own terminology for it, and maternity care comes from a long debate, decades-long debate, where representatives of women and midwives struggled and fought on these decision-making tables just to be able to name it from a women-centered perspective. So maternity care would be a term that would come from this advocacy. But when I try to do systematic literature review, I have struggled because what I call maternity care may be part of reproductive health and services and care in other contexts, like, for example, in humanitarian contexts, which is another topic of to actually address. So even finding the right words. So, for example, the problem with the reproductive care is that everything is mixed together. So in order to understand in the reproductive health services what is maternity and what is a non-maternity, which is two distinct fields of knowledge and practice. And very often women who go through one or the other pathways don't want to actually meet at some point, which is an issue. It's also a research issue, because I don't know if an article on reproductive health talks about maternity or non-maternity.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Let me check in with Judith and see if she has a question to bring to the table about maternity care and disaster.
My friend who was a midwife always had a bag on the ready, even when it wasn't a disaster, so that she could leave and be prepared in the best of times. And so what I'm wondering is if a woman or her family members or friends wants to take matters into her own hands and be prepared, what kind do you recommend that she have some kind of a disaster kit on the ready? And if so, what kinds of things should be in it?
So yes, yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Judith. Actually, a midwifery bag is the first disaster bag for health professional. Yes, midwives are always ready for a disaster. It doesn't change. The circumstances around change, but they're always ready. So yeah, that is a skill that is not recognized. And even the midwifery bag might not be part of the standard emergency bags. Well, there are many autonomous midwives who are disaster aware, very disaster aware, and they have their lists to share with women and their clients in case of disasters. And there is quite an awareness here in Australia that especially among childbearing women who are kind of inform themselves and wish to have a midwifery continuity of care. And if it is not provided by the system, they can afford it on their own. So yes, what happens is those women are more prepared because they have that continuity of care. And during COVID in Australia, private midwifery care, women who access private midwifery care were much more happy and had better outcomes than any other women. So definitely, we know, actually, we know. We're just not doing it. We're not doing the right thing. The system should prepare every childbearing woman should actually provide disaster preparedness kits, so lists of what should be taken, thoughts that should be done previous to any disasters, and also understand the context they are living in and connect with the local governments. So the local governments should actually think about that vulnerable population that is pregnant women. So, and many do, I mean, but it's really not integrated into the system properly.
Thank you. Jen, did you want to say something at this moment? Are you? Okay. All right, great. Let me check in with Liliana. Liliana, do you have a question for us?
Yes, from Paola Melchiori. Can you talk a little more of your experience or research there in Australia?
Yeah, thank you. It is fascinating. I mean, I feel like okay, I come from a background of scarcity as well as disasters, as my family have been through many challenges intergenerationally, including change of systems, collapse of empires and utopias, as well as extreme cold and droughts and all kinds of disasters. We don't even consider that, honestly. We've just been through it, but yes, studying my own background and our own resources for acknowledgement of what happened to us made me realize how resources for research are important. And this is what I'm getting in Australia. I'm amazed just by the fact that through university, I can access every article that is published. I mean, people here take it for granted. I'm downloading like crazy, like there is no tomorrow, because I have access to all the available knowledge that is the academic knowledge today. And it sounds like incredible, like I'm in a candy shop. So this availability of resources, I have never experienced that. I mean, I've been living in Croatia and in Italy, and I was struggling to get access to knowledge. And I have published articles that got me here because my articles as a citizen researcher that I actually manage through all the scarcity, not having access to anything open really. And thanks to the support of research networks, generally midwives, researchers, I was able to publish and actually be noticed here in Australia because somebody reads that. Somebody have asked access to not open access articles. And yes, the academic context in Australia is a context of abundance. I am taking all the possible advantages of it and talking to people and actually being able to access so many knowledgeable and interesting people who don't have to really think about scarcity. That is fascinating for me.
Yeah. I think you sort of touch on a point, Elena, that has really to do with women's knowledge not being freely accessible to one another, that the information that women have learned over the course of thousands of years are inaccessible really to each other. So you were stopped by whatever the academic sources were or how you did your searches in your library in Europe, not being able to have the information, which continues to keep women separate from their own wisdom. It's really, I get chills, not in a good way, but it's very frustrating because, again, as you point out, in disasters, especially, the whole expression of the maternal gift economy is visible, and how the mothers and the children need to come front and center. And if they're adult because they can't move quickly, they're the ones who need to go first. They're needed to be able to go first and supported because they need to be supported for the future generations, but because their attention needs to be with their children and they need to be served for free. It should not be something that they have to worry about. Are they going to be charged thousands of dollars to be airlifted, because of a disaster, which I know in Australia, okay, let me just say, I watch Australian TV series. So there's one called SkyMed that's in Australia where they show these medical teams airlifting all these people because they don't have access. And when you said, oh, it's like, women, you have to be resourced. Can you say a little bit about that, particularly in Australia, because the infrastructure is a little bit different than what most people are used to in urban, like Europe or in the United States? Can you say what it's like there a little bit?
Yes, I'm just about to research that, so
Yeah.
I cannot say much because I don't know much, and that's why I ask. I am really like a child here, and it is a methodological way to actually, it is kind of research. You kind of begin like a non instructed person, like a baby asking stupid questions. So this is what I'm doing now. Um, Um, but I find that really illuminating and surprising. So I'm learning. I'm learning what are they doing in Australia, which is a high income country, very resourced. So I don't think there are more resource countries than Australia, except Canada. So I would put those two countries on the top of disaster management resources. And they have means and technology to the highest level of technology to actually provide for populations all over Australia. Australia is a huge country with such a diverse geographical variety. It's incredible. Like how diverse Australia is, and what is needed to cater for all the people, and especially in disasters that are frequent here. So there is a culture of disasters, and Australian people are generally very disaster ready because they know they have to rely on themselves. And it is only in really extreme circumstances when they can't rely on themselves that actually they call the services, because they will do whatever they can to actually things for themselves, and they do that greatly. That it's only in extreme situations that they will call services. So definitely that it's a very resilient a nation, and different really cultures. Honestly, the multicultural aspects of Australia is it's very evident, and also the specific ways of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia. That is a whole other question, and how they're dealing with disasters and how they are acknowledged in the disaster research and practice is also a specific area of knowledge, and very, very interesting and debatable and critical, let's say. I mean, let's euphemize everything here because it can be daunting. So I mean, the techno world and the disaster world is a very masculine world, and what we see in TV showing this all technology can be a reality for many people, but for many people it's not. So there are not enough helicopters for all women in disasters. So we don't just make series about it, we don't want to put it on TV because that wouldn't be kind of audience friendly. It would be just like, oh well, we know that. Oh well, that it is what it is for mothers. But so when the mothers save themselves or the community save themselves, that is not news. But when a fancy fancy group of Australian savers and first responders, usually handsome, do that in a fancy technology, four-wheel drives, helicopters, airplanes. That is something we want to see. Everybody wants to see that. And it maybe also it brings hope. Like we might actually underestimate the need and the influence of hope, and maybe, you know, in our minds, thinking that there's a helicopter that might save me from a flood is actually a good thing. If the helicopter doesn't arrive, oh, well, you have to manage on your own. But thinking that there is a helicopter maybe makes me happy. I don't know. It's going to be like a fancy uniformed team that's going to come and save me. Maybe makes me more, you know, in peace of mind.
Thank you for that. Let me check in with Liliana and see if she has a question for you. I see that there are several in the Q&A, and we've had quite a few comments.
Yes, from Denise Mitten, some women, especially in privileged countries, can choose whether to have a child. I know 30-year-olds who ponder the question, should I bring a child into the world? With the uncertainty and disasters today, how might that question relate to your work? Thank you.
Oh, thank you for this question. I know it can be, yes, a thought and a persistent thought, and even a decision for young women and men and everybody else. Honestly, from my experience, I come from I'm an artist, and through my life, I've been through a lot of things trying to survive in between changes of systems and migration and wars and stuff. And doing everything on my own in a foreign world. Personally, I thought I would not have children. I made a decision, and I was certain that this world does not deserve to bring a child on it. It just felt like that. But then I changed my mind. I thought it was the craziest thing to do, and that was exciting to have a child. It was the craziest thing to do. My daughter is 15-year-old, and she's awesome, and I spend a lot of time, effort, and maternal care. I dedicated myself to her as if she was the art project, the ultimate art project. And I raised her in the terms that I thought were right for the world. And I educated myself on the history of women and the women's resilience. And so I raised her as an Amazon, being able to survive in a disaster. So it's really a personal choice. We think of childbirth and having a baby, of maternity, as if it was something we can control. It never is. Either you are in a privileged situation, or even without disasters, maternity is a mess, is a sheer chaos. So yeah, it's we have to measure also our resources. So if I didn't have a partner who could have supported me in that choice, and provide for me and my baby, I would probably not have a baby. And for an independent woman like me, that was a sacrifice. I couldn't do everything. I couldn't be a successful artist. I just gave up on that. I could on that actually intention, because yeah, I mean, there are artists who are not successful. Let's just acknowledge that. And what is success? You know, we can measure that in money or in influence, in relations. I measure my artistic success in my relations, and I'm rich, I'm successful. So I know lots of people, and that came from my artistic career and being what I am, including maternity. So for me, maternity was also changed my pathways, my artistic life, and actually brought me where I am now. So even if I was a broke artist, Made no sense to have a baby because I could not afford a baby. And I could not afford to actually have a daughter by myself. It got me through to Australia to do research on maternity care and disasters. So, you know, the pathways of the goddess are infinite. You don't know, but you can make crazy choices.
Thank you, Elena, for that. I think what you point out is that if a woman has community, and I mean support around her, large or small, to be able to co-create a decision and a potential future that with an outcome that is successful. And I'll just share that my sisters had this very serious talk with me, and I was single, but they said, we would want you to have a baby and we would help you and we would care for you and your baby. So I didn't have to have a partner. I had a family who really said, you know, if you choose, we want to be there for you. We will be there for you. Very unusual in an urban situation, you know, in the Western culture. And, you know, I made my choices, but I knew that there were people who could actually support me and they would be there for life. Because, you know, when you have a child, like Jen knows, they grow up, but they're still your children. So you have them until either you leave the planet or they leave the planet. So they're always going to be your children. And I think it is an important, serious question that oftentimes people don't consider about, you know, am I, should I, will I, do I? A question of whether or not the world is safe for children. It's never been safe. The world has been full of disasters from the beginning of its creation, where there were, you know, meteors and, you know, all kinds of predator animals. So it really has to do with the way in which children are brought into the world. I think it's really important for us to consider that these days. Again, Elena points out that these decisions that are being made of how women bring children into the world are in the hands of men, which just does make no sense, really. And it's dangerous for the future of children and for mothers. So Ellen, I really appreciate what you're doing and actually stimulating a conversation that's so necessary at this very challenging time in this world, because we need communities of people who are willing to raise good humans and support good motherers. So yes, Jen, you need to unmute, my friend.
In fact, that's the way humans evolved in the first place. Mothers having a community around them that helped them care for the children and allow them to survive. Grandmothers were very important, and that has been discovered and understood now by a lot of researchers. So that we need to go back to what we were doing in the beginning and not be divided by into our individual little houses by capitalism.
I come
Thanks,
from a family that is very relational and connected, and very storytelling. So even though many of the things that happened to our families in Istria and in all these area that in Europe is considered like all these savage Balkans, it's not recorded, it's not researched. So but we know, I know what happened to my family way back because we share that knowledge, and I know about disasters and how our grandmothers and great grandmothers saved children from disasters, and these short stories are shared. It's something that I never thought about, honestly, before starting the research on maternity care and disasters. And before coming to Australia, I educated myself and was helped for that about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture and knowledge, and the awareness of my own cultural background. And there where the memory actually started unfolding, and I remembered all those stories, like, for example, my great-grandmother prouding herself that her children survived the little ice age that was in Europe for 4 centuries up to 19th century and more. I mean, so there was a problem of extreme cold. And her children survived, all of her children survived, and others, because we are survivals of disasters. We are the ones who survived disasters.
Yeah.
So disasters are ever present. We just don't kind of always think about them in that way. So she had the strategy of co-sleeping with her babies. Instead of putting it in a cot and babies would freeze and die, and that was a big problem, they would just keep the babies with themselves. So babies were always warm, and they would always be aware of if something is happening with the baby. Now, we can debate how co-sleeping is practical or safe or everything. There are ways, but that was a survival strategy. And that's why I'm here now, because my great-grandmother co-slept with my grandfather, you know, like as a baby, and nursed him with his breast milk. So, and she was aware of it, and she was bragging about it because her children survived and the other children didn't. That was a big issue. It was horrific. It was a big trauma for everybody. We have a mythological creature of great cold. It's called Mora. We don't really think of her as a climate-related mythological creature, but it is a great cold. And people would make sense of babies dying in the cod, because they would say the Mora bit them. So this storytelling and the community and in the relations of your own blood are important. There is not enough resources in most of countries to actually do research about it. You know, we can't only rely on this written privileged knowledge. And I assure you, is really cumbersome and difficult and inhuman to write an academic article or read them. It's like, what is the language they're speaking? Why do I have to say things this way? Nobody's going to understand me. So yeah, storytelling. Academia has its own storytelling. It's incomprehensible for most of people, and that is wrong.
Yes, it's a very specific language that academics speak, where I used to say to my sister, why can't they just speak plain English? It's incredibly frustrating because no one outside of academia can understand what they're saying without a dictionary. It's just so ridiculous. Jen, and then
well, academia is part of the whole capitalist program. And there is the saying, the academia industrial complex. So actually, it is part of the money-making syndrome, and it is abstract. All that abstraction allows it to be special and to dominate the field of knowledge. So that, and be patriarchal as well. So that's, I mean, that's I think, an important criticism of academia. Although, you know, you kind of need to infiltrate it as well.
Yes. Thank you, Jen. Judith, I see that there are questions in the Q&A. Can you select one and pose that for Elena, please?
I want to ask you about a very different type of mother's gifts to her children that come from a very different type of disaster, and that is from the lives of enslaved women. And in the book, Beloved, the enslaved mother kills her child rather than having it go back into slavery. And I've just become aware of a book called Ashley Sack, in which the historian found a embroidered bag that had in it pecans, a tattered dress, a lock of hair, and a love letter from the mother to her child as the child was being sold into enslavement. And I wonder if that is still an issue, and just the comment on that kind of tragedy.
I'm not sure I'm an expert on that. I'm sure somebody more knowledgeable about slavery can talk about it and about racial issues. And what I can add is that from my background, which is Slavic background, we know slavery. Actually, the word slave comes from Slavic people, because we were slaves for centuries, for various empires, and mothers would maim their children and also tattoo them, especially girls, and would do different practices to hide the children from people who would want to take them in slavery or just take them. I think it is a current problem today because very many people are on the go on migration, involuntary and climate-related and disaster-related migrations, compounding disasters such as war and drought. For example, Syrian people, Afghani people. And in those migrations, there is also a slave trade that we might not acknowledge as a reality of facts today, but it is. It's real. And I'm sure women try to find the ways of how to part with their children. Sometimes women will send their small children for the better life because they think they would die with them. So they would send them in this migration and they wouldn't know what happens to them. So they would leave something with them, I believe, as they always did, even when they, so in my country, when they would go to work abroad, like just across the border, and they would have illegitimate children, they would give those children away to the church, but they would give them something like a piece of a coin that they would keep the other part. So they would try to actually leave a traces of identity with children they had to give away. And today, I think it is a reality for so many people, unfortunately. We just don't think about it. They don't have access to resources and the communication and research to tell. So even though it might not be recognized as slavery and might not be legal, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It actually exists, and it is awful. And women find strategies to survive or not, or decide not to survive.
Thanks, Elena. Yeah, that is a very real and difficult, often identified as human trafficking these days, as opposed to slavery. And there are lots of different, this whole global issue of moving people around the planet and promising them better lives. It's a very large topic. Thank you, though, for your comments about it. Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah. Let me check in with Liliana and see if there's a question that she wants to put forward.
Yeah, there's a question from Marta Benavides, except at the end, she talks about this acronym Sunday, and I don't know what that means, but I'm just going to ask the question. Marta Benavides, important information and discernments, and at this time, really urgent, given the policies that are being implemented in general and on these concerns in particular. The perspective Elena shared are very much in line with what we see in the global south. At this moment, cuts on international aid are being implemented globally by countries of the north, mostly affecting sectors that have been traditionally excluded, and even much more versus women and children. As we have seen today, 2/3 of the world population live already in poverty and extreme poverty. This is an issue of peace and justice, and also environmental when we consider the aspects we're talking about in this presentation. What recommendations do we have on the linkages of development agendas and Sendai? I looked up Sendai. I don't know what that is. I asked her on there. But I thought there is an important question. So if you can just make a comment about it.
Thank you, Liliana. Thank you for the question. I talk about Sendai framework because in a way it is the most authoritative framework. It's a document, really. That's something written. It is a document that was produced by the UN countries, which is the most, it's like almost all the countries in the world. Just 2 are excluded. I kind of like this framework because it is based on the resilience of local governments. When we talk about disasters, and in disaster literature, we will mostly see humanitarian literature. So disaster can be called humanitarian sector. And that is problematic in many ways. It assumes that some countries will just need external help and they will just not be able to cope with disasters, and many countries are not. Honestly, that may be a reality of facts, but there is something colonial in that thinking, and it is the assumptions that we know better and that we have the resources and we're gonna come and save you. That is not how the disaster really works. But we will also document how we save you, and that is the humanitarian sector literature. There is not enough literature on the self-sufficiency of local governments to face disaster. And that has many reasons. First, you have to have resources to do research, and many governments don't. And even if they do, their research might not be considered as valid enough or written in enough professional way. Or written in their own language, which is already an exclusion criteria. It is hilarious. Yeah, it is hilarious. It is not right. And it is a problem. So I think talking with my colleagues from QUT, and I am so lucky to have colleagues from many different countries. We are all in public health, but we deal with different issues, and we are all in the same office. And it's really nice right now after COVID. People started coming back, and so there are people from different African countries. There are people from different Asian countries, few Europeans, whatever that means, and whatever African means and Asian means. So we exchange information about our own countries and about how we deal with everything, including disasters. And there is a tendency that is growing in the literature of how actually governments of all countries provide for their own population, and how humanitarian aid can be integrated in the government's needs and expectations. So instead of being imposed from the outside, it is actually integrated, and it is a help based on the needs of the people that require help. So it is community-based, it is a collaborative, and that is the new tendency of humanitarian sector. It is not always a reality of facts, but at least in theory, we know how it should be done.
Thanks, Elena. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that framework, I put a link in the chat, and it actually has it's at the UN website where you can look at the actual documents and all the supportive material there. Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I haven't prepared the slides. I know there were some comments. Where are your slides? I know. Well, it's a work to do slides. I didn't do it.
It's fine. You're a great storyteller. I can tell it comes from your maternal line there. It's wonderful. I'm going to ask a question that isn't in anywhere that I'm seeing, but it has to do with the maternal gift economy, because you are using the language of the maternal gift economy in your whole thesis of what's there at the bottom and what can serve. Can you say a little bit more about are people open to the notion of the maternal gift economy? Do you say it to them in this disaster, when you're talking about disasters with them? Are they kind of getting what you're talking about when you say it?
No.
Don't feel so bad, Jen.
No, it's like speaking in another language. Like, what? No. Like, what are you saying? No, I have to take a moment. I'm trying to measure the minutes for the maternal gift economy explanation. But when I managed to go through my 3-minute elevator pitch on maternal gift economy, people get it. It's immediate, especially if they are parents, and especially if they are mothers. They will totally get it, and they will integrate it immediately into the ways they make meaning of everything that happens. So it is very powerful language, and it is a very powerful concept and theoretical background. So maternal gift economy is part of my theoretical background in my thesis and my research. I don't use it always because it's just such a new concept. I mean, really, it's such a new concept that people just get focused on. Is like, what are you talking about? Because as Jan would always say, and in all her books, in all your books, you actually made that very clear. It's so obvious and at the same time so hidden, and naming it actually puts it up in the surface. But it takes time for people to realize that they know all of that, and that naming it actually creates a reality of this maternal gift economy, makes it visible. And it is very invisible in the academic setting and in the academia. So I use maternal gift economy as part of my theoretical background. I also use Michel Foucault, and I also use other, but I think it integrates well with everybody else because first, it is so well explained in your books, Jen, and I thank you for that. It is thorough. It has such a philosophical, semantic, and experiential background that you just, once you know it, you can't unknow it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And also it has a right to be in academia. What I'm kind of having it as a mission or just my intention is like, I'm assuming a maternal standpoint in my approach. I also use a realist approach, understanding what works for whom, and including mothers in that, and looking from the mother's perspective. But in order to be able to understand and to explain in an academic language what are mothers and what is a maternal perspective, I needed Jan's theory because it just puts it in words, and it's understandable for both academic context as well as for lay people or people who just don't really care about what academia has to say about their lives. But it is important, and it kind of bridges the gap between people and science, people and policy, people and the government. We kind of need to be multilingual and switch codes all the time. And since women and mothers have been excluded from the discourse, it's actually very hard to even say mother as a word in academia.
Exactly.
So, but I'm trying to say it, and I've been through the process of evaluation from different stages of the PhD, and I am happy that all of that was confirmed, and I went through the process, so many processes. I had to write so many academic bureaucracy papers that will not be published, but had to pass commissions and panels and really academic authorities in order to keep saying what I'm saying right now. And I developed really a language and tried to beat me.
Yes. Jen, did you have any comments that you wanted to share there?
Yeah, well, I think that the maternal gift economy is the operating system of the human being, that we are a maternal species, and our economy, capitalism and patriarchy, contradicts it. And obviously, it keeps it unseen. So we're doing it without realizing what it is. We're operating that way while we're in a economic system that contradicts what we're doing and actually takes the gifts of everybody and of nature. So it's pretty obvious that it has not been seen, because seeing it challenges that system of oppression of one mode of being by the other. And so we're in this double system where the capitalism and patriarchy and that logic has overtaken and conceals a whole maternal gift economy logic. Anyway, that's my soapbox.
Yeah, I do believe that part of the challenge also is that the maternal gift economy logic is a life affirming logic,
Yeah,
and other logics actually don't have that at the center of their orientation when they use the word economy. So it creates a kind of a stumbling block in the mind, because there's such a I call it the money cult, you know, the money cult. It's so attached. Economy and money are so intertwined that when you say free, maternal gift economy is free, what about money? You know, that's the immediate thing. Anyways,
yeah.
to go back to Elena. Yes, Jen.
Well, I just wanted to say it's obvious with this two-tier system that people don't know about the gift economy, and they don't know how to get there. So they need somebody to tell them. And then they do go beneath the system that we're in, and they do recognize that they are already doing it.
Well, I want to add something here. It is not that mothers want to do everything for free. We just do it, but we also like beautiful things. We also like comfort, and I want to have a four-wheel drive as a midwife to be able to reach a woman in need, in disasters. I want to have a helicopter midwife as well to be able to reach to me. You know, I know a midwife who knows how to use a helicopter. You know, I want all of that. I want to be part of this abundance of resources, not outside of it. You know, like we don't need money to produce milk because we are the producers, but I want all of that. I am part of the society as a mother. And I want to maternal science because I am part of scientific community. And I believe that maternal gift economy theory is part of the maternal science. And I want to affirm this science on a scientific level. Why not? Why shouldn't we have it all? I want to have it all, honestly. And I want it in a peaceful society. And I want it in a society that invests resources in life and adaptation to what is coming today. It's not tomorrow, it's today. So I want to invest that money in useful things for survival. It doesn't mean I'm negating all technology and I'm negating all that we are living in. We definitely, like Jen would say, we are in a mixed economy. We just don't see the other one where that is exploited. But it's not that mothers like to do everything for free and use their own resources for that. It's not something we like to do on our own.
Absolutely.
That's
Jen.
because women are isolated in their own homes with their own children, and they don't have a society that they're living in that's based on the gift economy. Because if it were, then they would have everything they need, and whether it's some kind of consumer object or something basic. And we just really have gotten into an economic system that's tremendously exploitative, that's destroying the environment, and works on war and investment in war machines and bombs and killing people. So we're in a wrong economy. It is failing. It is destroying the world. And the gift economy has to be elaborated in a way that will take the place of that exploitative economy without losing everything that exploitative economy has brought to some people. So we can maintain the inventions, the ideas, but they have to be embedded in a different human-oriented, maternal-oriented society for everybody, mothering men as well as mothering women and children. And so it's, let's say, a matriarchal society.
Thanks, Jen.
As you know, there is only, I'm just wanted to add this, sorry, Letitia.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's women are purposefully or whatever excluded from participating in the resources and even the philanthropic activities. Not 1% is dedicated to women's projects. That is slowly changing, but I mean, we can't reach 2%. 2% of all the resources, all the rest is dedicated to men's, white privileged men's projects, or I don't know how to call it, because honestly, like if we only have not even 2%, like everything else, where does it go?
That's
It
right.
goes into bombs. It goes into rich people's pockets. Goes in.
No, that's philanthropy.
Oh, in philanthropy. Well,
Yeah.
there is a women's philanthropy movement that has grown a lot in the last like 20, 40 or 40 years, but it's still not enough because the overall society is patriarchal as can be. And really, I think that now in this moment when we have a patriarchal president of the United States in the worst way, and wars going on all over, and people starving and worse in many countries, and the environmental crisis, people are realizing something is really wrong. We don't have to behave this way. We can't, because we're not going to survive as a species, and most of the other species won't survive either. So we have to find a solution. And we have the solution within us, which is the maternal gift economy and acting according to those values instead of the values of patriarchy and capitalism.
Yeah.
That is my idea.
I'm going to bring us back to some questions, or a question related. Liliana, I was going to just bring in Paula's question.
Yes, I was going to ask the question.
Okay, would you go
From
ahead?
Paola Mercury, just a tribute to Palestine situation. You make me think of what Lama Khoury, a Palestinian psychoanalyst and activist, writes. In Palestine, just to decide to be a mother is an act of resistance and against the reproductive genocide that is happening there. In Gaza, Lancet estimates 300% of increase in abortion during this war. We don't know much of what is happening, but I suppose the gift economy is the rule. Do you have any connection?
Easy for me.
Yes.
Yeah, that is yes. Yes, I understand and I agree. What happens in every disaster, and Palestinian disaster is a specific one, is that many children will die and many women will decide, or many families will decide to have children and, what they say, replace the dead ones. Many will do that on their own will. Many might not have say on that, but in those circumstances that are so extreme, like in a Palestinian situation, where the mere existence, physical as well as symbolic, is questioned. Having children and bringing children to the world, even knowing they might not survive, is an act of resistance. And it happens also with other populations that are threatened and under constant pressure by racism and colonialism still today. Women from these populations, and I'm thinking of, for example, Europe, the Roma people, Roma women, and I have had talks with Roma mothers. They might decide to have more children than it's culturally appropriate in the societies where they live in, and they may be judged for that, for having more than 2 children, and offered ways of avoiding to have that many children. That is profoundly unjust, because the Roma people are discriminated against. So, and they do live in this symbolic as well as existential precarious situation, and yes, mothers do resist with their ability and the potential to give life and survive the loss of many children. I believe that there are many other situations like that, and I do agree that having children and being a mother is an act of resistance. Despite everything that's happening, it's actually also keeping the hope and exercise resilience, extreme resilience. And it does happen here as well with Indigenous people of Australia. It is, I'm not going to talk about it because I'm not an Indigenous person, and in that sense. So it's better that somebody that is Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander talks about it. But it is an issue, and it doesn't concern only one ethnies or one set of people. It can be universalized in that sense. It happens to more than one population, and it is individually, and each setting is awful. In Palestinian setting and Palestinian, the condition of Palestinian mothers is extreme and awful. Letitia, we can't hear you.
Unmute Letitia.
Sorry, I just want to make sure, Elena, that people are asking how to get in touch with you. If you could put your email address or a contact information in the chat. Jodine wasn't wanting to invite you to something.
Thank you, Jodine. I received your email. I will definitely get in touch. I was preparing for this conference, so I didn't yet for this salon, but I am definitely coming in touch with you, and I received your email. I will put my email for everybody else.
Great. Okay. And to close this out, I thought maybe what I would like to do, you may have touched a little bit on this before, but Paula was referencing and sort of bringing it back to your research in Australia specifically, are the differences between your experiences with Aboriginal situations and other citizens? Are there different protocols or ways of researching that you have you run across yet, or are you working into that?
Oh, yes, I spent a whole year, actually 2 years, just to do that. Um, well, there are specific research protocols to do research with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia. And I have spent 1 year to educate myself on that. I have an Indigenous mentor, Deb Duthie, who is guiding me and hinting to something that I have to do and giving me precise instructions. I also had to go through the ethical procedure, very specific ethical procedure, to be able to do my research. So my research is considered high risk to talk to people about disasters and maternity care and disasters. And because I want to talk to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and as well as overseas people in Indonesia, I had to go through this very thorough ethical procedure, and I got my research approved. And so my research is have integrated the concepts of cultural safety in research. So through the education that was provided by QT, but also by the IATSIS Institute for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies. I have been through the administration through the ethical approval and process in order to actually prove that I am aware of what I'm doing and that I know what is the most appropriate way to include Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. It doesn't mean that I will be able to include their perspectives in my research, but just to be able to talk to Aboriginal people in the first place, I had to go through 2 years and more of education and formal procedures. But that seemed very ethical to me, because if Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders are part of the general population, and I want to address the general population, everybody, I don't want to exclude anybody, but if I didn't go through this ethics procedure, I would have to purposefully exclude Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders from this research on maternity care in disasters in Australia, and specifically in Queensland. That seemed unjust. So I put myself through this hideous process of academic bureaucracy that is required, and I survived. I survived, and in my research, I also managed to exclude Aboriginal, actually Indigenous cultural and intellectual property from my intellectual property. So everything I ask Aboriginal people stays theirs, and that is written in paper, so many papers that I had to sign, and I made the institution sign as well. So the cultural safety and the Indigenous cultural and intellectual property rights are considered as separate. So I just have to say, not just promise, it's just part of my research, not to take that information from anybody, including overseas people and cultures. So in this, way that colonialism legacy teaches us. So that is a premise to actually ethically conduct research with Aboriginal people, which might not happen, honestly. I've been through all of that, but I haven't talked to many Aboriginal communities, or even institutions are reluctant to engage with researchers who haven't been through that process. So I'm opening now the ground for possible collaborations, and I'm happy to collaborate with Indigenous experts, institutions, and communities, because I think it is a topic of interest, and I think Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander population and peoples and communities have already answers for that, and they know, and they might want to share that with me, and with what will be the outcomes of my research, and that aims to reach the policy and decision makers. I guess all researchers say that. Anyway, I am trying my best, and I feel supported by institutions, and actually, already Queensland is investing me because I could only come here with a scholarship, and I have a scholarship by Queensland University of Technology, and I also am supported by Natural Hazards Research Australia, which is Commonwealth federal government. So there are so many institutions involved in this research. It's not just me saying lovely things. I do feel responsibility towards all those people that are supporting me and are giving me the opportunity to do that in the best possible way. I couldn't find it anywhere else in the world. So thank you, Australia, for that.
Absolutely. I think it's also very admirable that you have gone through the rigors. It's not often that someone in doing research will articulate the necessity for protocol. And while it is very rigorous and annoying, the relationships that will come out of your willingness to approach from a respectful way. That was a word that I wrote down in very all capital letters. The needs must be respectful to the people. And I think that you represent that. I hate to say it, but we've come to almost the top of the hour. And is there one thing or something that you'd like to close with, Elena? And then I'll go over to Jen, and then I'll close us out. Anything you want to share in closing with us?
Well, I'm open for collaborations. Please feel free to contact me if you're interested in the research, if you want to collaborate. As a friend, as a new friend of mine, he's a friend of a friend, told me, he said, like, you have to say these things because what you're doing and what you think does not belong to you. I do believe in that. I do believe that what I am doing is channeling what is there, what should be done. I just am one of the channels and one of the voices, but I do believe that my thoughts do not belong to me. I may have a way to say things and to synthesize, and I use this gift. I believe it is a talent and a gift. Can I brag a little bit? And
It's so Western of you. Right.
well, it's actually something I'm learning. It took me
Yeah.
a lot because my culture is very humbling. We always say we and never I. I'm not allowed in my culture to say I. So I do find it, I do find a voice in my head and my elaborations to be a we voice and not an I voice. So thank you. And yeah, just get in touch and let's continue doing this because it looks like it's gonna last for a little bit more. the the fight for the word and for the right for discourse on maternal gift economy.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you, Elena. Genevieve.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elena. That was great. I really appreciate your coming and your clarifying all of these things for us and also staying up so late at night to do it. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from you through time.
Thank you, Jen. Elena, I too come from a culture where our internal sense, when I say I, it involves we. So the I can never, it's always interrelated. It's never about me as an individual person. It's about my ancestors. It's about the community that I represent. It's about the teachers and everyone who supported me, that I stand before you and speak these words. So I completely understand that. It's quite different than what the Western culture is about the ownership of intellectual property and my idea and my theory and my creation. I want to thank you for everything that you have shared with us and your willingness to actually be really transparent with your work. And I think that you're going to have quite a few collaborators who are doing it, and I'm going to definitely stay connected with you now because yes, I have a friend who will, I think, can help put you in touch with the other elders. And she is her job in this time, she said, was to help bridge cultures. And she is a grandmother who lives in the North. So she's done a lot of that. And I know she would love your work. So I'm very excited to introduce you to her. Her name is Billawara Lee, and she had a symphony was written with her storytelling recently that was produced. Yeah, it was very beautiful. All right. I want to thank everyone for staying a little bit late so that we could close you out. Today's recording is going to be on our website, the maternalgifteconomymovement.org. I reposted Elena's email address so you can see it in the chat. And if you missed it, you can always write to us at maternalgifteconomy@gmail.com, and we'll make sure that you stay in touch. We are so excited that Women's International History Month is coming up, and we have a really lovely program set up for us. Diane put the link to register in it. In 2 weeks, on March the 8th, we have Rematriating Society Part 2 with Sherry Mitchell, Pat McCabe, and Vicki Noble. For those of you who did not get a chance to actually see that portion, which was in October, it was a dynamic salon. It was absolutely stunning and beautiful. So I look forward to that. On March the 16th, Karina Kailo is going to have a special event, and her latest book called The Sauna Culture, Sweat and Spirituality on March the 16th. And her book will be actually coming out at the probably by summer. And this is actually, her book is a study that compares North America, Finnish, Iberian, Castro, Irish, Lenape, Delaware, Native Americans, and others about the sauna, its healing, spiritual, and rituals in a very researched academic way. Springer is actually publishing her book as part of a series of books, so it's very exciting. We are very happy that she's going to be speaking about that.
Excuse me.
On March,
it's March 5th,
yeah.
March 15th, not 16th, I believe.
Oh, sorry, March 15th. Okay. On On March the 22nd, we have Heidi Howes and Lisa Woodward of Motherful. And if you missed them last year in March, they are giving us an update. They launched a guaranteed income program with Ohio Mothers Trust. So they're going to tell us about that and their newest developments on their co-housing project and more. And if you don't know who Motherful is, they are single mothers in Ohio, and they have a network of over 600 women whose foundation in their organizing is the maternal gift economy and modern matriarchal studies. So here we have in the United States, urban women who are incorporating in their worldview and their radical activists. So we're very excited that they've joined us in the network and will be with us. So everyone, thank you so much for your attention and your time. I know that there's a lot going on in this world and that there are many, many challenges, tremendous amount of suffering, but you can see from Elena and Genevieve's thoughts that there's lots of newness coming in. Someone brought up hope. I think it was Elena. We can't lose hope. And I just want to remind you that there was research that was released in 2019 that said it takes only 3.5% of nonviolent action to be able to topple dictators like they did in the Philippines and governments around the world. So organize, galvanize, and don't lose hope. We can get there with the maternal gift economy. Peace, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.